Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine sitting across a chessboard from a legend like Magnus Carlsen.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just reacting to your last move. He's like calculated 15 possible scenarios, anticipating your responses multiple steps into the future.
Right. Or think about visionaries like Elon Musk,
Exactly.
seemingly able to predict and shape the future of entire industries.
So what if that kind of strategic foresight, that ability to see many moves ahead, wasn't some innate genius you're just born with, but a learnable skill?
Well, that's the compelling premise that kicks off the material we're diving into today.
Okay.
We're exploring excerpts from the book, Your Next 5 Moves, Master the Art of Business Strategy.
Right, your next 5 moves.
Yeah, it lays out a framework for strategic thinking, for making those critical decisions and building success. And it pulls lessons from a really diverse set of fields.
Like what kind of fields?
Well, from chess champions and figures throughout history to modern business titans and even drawing surprising strategic parallels with the mindset found within, yes, the mob.
Okay, that sounds like a fascinating mix, combining ancient philosophy with modern business and, well, organized crime strategy. Interesting.
It is.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the most important concepts from these pages. We want to help you understand this strategic framework in detail.
Break down the core ideas.
Yeah, break them down, and most importantly, see how you can actually take these insights and apply them. Not just if you're building a massive company,
Right.
but how they relate to your own life, your career path, whatever goals you're aiming for.
It's about a thorough, in-depth look, but hopefully keeping it grounded and engaging.
Okay, so where do we start? What's the absolute core idea here?
The fundamental concept presented is treating business and life as a strategic game, much like chess.
All right, chess.
And the author proposes that thinking specifically 5 moves ahead is the crucial sweet spot.
5 moves. Why 5?
Well, it's argued that it's enough foresight to build a meaningful strategy and anticipate potential outcomes, but not so far out that you become, paralyzed by complexity or unable to adapt swiftly to changing circumstances.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned those grandmaster examples earlier.
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen, Elon Musk.
We see Carlsen not just planning his next move, but literally calculating entire sequences of play.
Exactly.
And Musk described as seeing maybe 12 moves ahead in the incredibly intricate, fast-changing landscape of business and technology. It makes you think this is exclusive to people operating at the absolute peak, doesn't it?
It's a natural conclusion, yeah. But the material strongly argues against it.
Oh.
It emphasizes that this capacity for seeing the broader sequence of moves for strategic thinking is absolutely a learnable skill.
A learnable skill. How so?
Well, the author shares his own personal trajectory, starting out as a salesperson and working his way up to CEO.
Right.
And how deliberately learning to think strategically adopting this 5-move perspective is what he credits with saving him millions of dollars and dozens of panic attacks. So it's framed as a deliberate practice, a shift in mindset away from just reacting to the present moment and towards anticipating the future.
That is incredibly empowering to hear. Seriously.
Right, yeah.
It means it's not about some mystical inborn genius. It's about developing a specific skill set.
Precisely. And the book makes it clear this isn't only relevant if you aspire to be a founder or a CEO.
Right. It applies across the board.
Absolutely. It applies across all levels, whether you're building a specific career as a CFO, operating as a freelancer, or, anywhere in between. The prerequisite isn't a title, it's self-awareness and a willingness to adopt this strategic perspective.
Okay, so self-awareness is key. Where does that lead us first?
That brings us to the very first step, or as the book frames it, the critical phase before your first move.
Before the first move.
Yeah, before you start strategizing, planning, or taking any action on the board, the most fundamental requirement is deep self-reflection.
Self-reflection.
And the core question you absolutely must answer is, who do you want to be?
Who do you want to be? Okay, that sounds like an almost philosophical question.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. In the context of a book about business strategy, how does something that seems so personal and abstract connect to building a company or mapping out a career path?
Well, the author posits that it is, in fact, the most important question.
Really? The most important?
Yeah. It's the absolute bedrock upon which all subsequent strategy is built. Understanding your deepest desires, the core of what truly makes you tick, is fundamental.
Why fundamental?
Because it directly dictates your level of urgency, your willingness to make sacrifices, and fundamentally the very nature of the approach you'll take.
Okay, so
Are you aiming to build a solid local business that provides a comfortable life and stability? Or are you driven by a desire to create massive disruption and change an entire industry?
Right. Different goals,
Right.
different intensity.
Exactly. Your answer to that core question sets the scale of your ambition and the intensity required to get there.
Mhm.
Without clarity on who you want to be, your actions can lack direction and conviction.
Okay, I understand how clarifying that ultimate identity provides the target. And the book introduces this concept of future truth. Could you
Yeah.
elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. Future truth. It's about living in the present as though your desired future state is already a reality. It's a powerful mental model.
Acting as if?
Pretty much. The example used is Thomas J. Watson, the founder of IBM.
Okay.
Long before IBM was the global powerhouse we know, Watson had a vividly clear picture of what the company would look like when it was finally done.
Wow.
He then used that future vision to determine how a company of that stature would need to act in the present, what its values would be, how its employees would behave, the quality of its products.
So you embody the future self now.
Yes, embodying your future identity and vision today.
Like President Kennedy declaring the future truth of landing a man on the moon within a decade.
That's a great parallel.
He set the audacious future goal, and that vision then dictated the actions, the focus, the resource allocation required in the present.
Precisely. It's about creating a powerful vision and then allowing that vision to define your current reality and drive your immediate decisions.
And does the book offer tools for this? Because that sounds like hard work.
It does. It mentions questions from the personal identity audit, which is apparently included in Appendix A.
Okay.
These aren't just abstract thought experiments. They're practical prompts designed to help you study yourself.
Study yourself more than the competition.
The author argues that studying yourself is even more critical and impactful than studying competitors or market trends. This deep self-study is presented as the path to greater self-acceptance and, ultimately, freedom from internal conflict and external expectations.
That self-acceptance and freedom sounds appealing, but honestly asking, who do I want to be? It still feels like work.
It is work, no doubt.
Especially for listeners who might be very results-oriented, focus on immediate tasks, or perhaps feel constrained by their current circumstances. How do people who are more pragmatic, maybe less introspective, approach such a seemingly abstract question?
That's a very valid point. And the book acknowledges that having an immediate, crystal-clear answer isn't always the case for everyone. It emphasizes that this self-discovery is a continuous process.
Okay.
But from a psychological perspective, thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which the book references, intrinsic motivation acting based on your deepest values and personal goals is an incredibly powerful and sustainable driver for action and resilience, much more potent than external pressures or seeking status alone.
Right, that internal engine.
Exactly. And self-awareness is consistently identified in leadership studies as a critical trait for effectiveness. Without understanding your core why, it's incredibly difficult to navigate the inevitable setbacks, criticisms, and obstacles you'll face.
Makes sense.
There's a story in the book that illustrates this beautifully. Someone named Sean.
Okay.
He initially chased a goal of world domination because, well, it sounded impressive.
Huh. Okay. Been there.
Right. But through honest self-reflection, guided by this framework, he realized his true, deepest desire was actually to prioritize quality family time.
Really?
Yeah. And being honest about that allowed him to redefine his success and set the right goal for him. It led to peace and fulfillment rather than chasing an external definition of winning that didn't align with his true self.
Wow, that Sean story really brings it into focus. It's not about achieving some predefined benchmark of success.
Nope.
It's about aligning your strategy with what genuinely matters to you, your authentic self.
Exactly that.
Speaking of confronting difficult realities, the book talks about using adversity and pain as powerful rocket fuel. That idea really resonates with me.
It's a central theme for driving action once you have clarity on your vision.
Rocket fuel from pain.
Yeah. The author shares his own intensely personal rock-bottom moment, a painful experience that he describes as the point where the old Patrick died.
Wow.
He made a conscious decision to channel every past slight, every moment of shame, every put-down he and his family had ever experienced.
Channel it into what?
Into a fierce, unyielding determination to succeed and provide for them. He swore that they would never feel shame or lack opportunity again. That pain was transmuted into an incredible drive.
That kind of transformation is incredibly powerful to hear about. And the story of Barbara Corcoran.
Oh yeah, the Barbara Corcoran story.
Using the fury from being rejected by a potential business partner to fuel the building of her real estate empire. Another compelling example from the book.
It is taking that negative energy, that feeling of being underestimated or hurt, and converting it into tangible, positive action and results.
That strategic channeling.
Yes, that strategic channeling of rejection and shame into resolve and ambition. The book also brings up envy, which is fascinating.
Envy. How does that fit in?
It's positioned as an indicator in this process of self-assessment and motivation. If you find yourself feeling envious of someone else's success, it's suggested this might mean one of two things. Either you're not being truly honest with yourself about what you genuinely want in life,
Okay.
or you do want it, but you lack the discipline and willingness to put in the hard work required to achieve it.
Ouch. That's direct.
It is. The healthy reaction to someone else's success, if you are truly aligned with your own path and putting in the effort, is presented as genuine happiness for them.
So envy is a signal.
A signal to examine your own desires and discipline.
That's a sharp, insightful point about envy. It really forces you to confront whether you're truly comfortable with your path or just avoiding the demanding effort it took someone else to get where they are.
Exactly.
The book also mentions the 4 levels of why, linked to Maslow's hierarchy.
Right. It reframes Maslow's pyramid in terms of motivational drivers. Level 1 is survival.
Paying bills.
Yeah, the basic need to pay bills, keep the lights on. Level 2 is status, keeping up appearances, seeking external validation, wanting recognition.
Right.
Level 3 is success, the drive to accomplish significant goals, to win, to build something substantial.
And level 4.
Level 4 at the top is purpose, making a meaningful impact on others. Leaving a lasting legacy, reaching a state of self-actualization where your work aligns with your deepest values.
And the book notes that relatively few people ever consistently operate at that level 4, the purpose level. Why is that?
Well, the material attributes this difficulty to several factors. Fear of failure, getting stuck in the day-to-day grind of survival mode, or being constantly consumed by distractions that serve as an escape from the more difficult, deeper work of self-inquiry required to understand your true purpose.
It keeps coming back to that self-inquiry.
It consistently circles back to the absolute necessity of asking those fundamental questions about who you want to be and confronting the answers honestly.
So, understanding your core identity, using pain as fuel, being honest about envy, identifying your why, it all stems from that initial crucial step of self-awareness and defining your vision.
That's the foundation.
That structure makes a lot of sense. And the book emphasizes finding guides along this journey, what the author calls your mentoring vault.
Ah, yes, the mentoring vault. This is another fascinating concept explored.
What is it exactly?
It's described as a visual assembly of your heroes or significant figures, living or dead, that you mentally turn to for counsel and perspective.
Like a personal board of advisors.
Kind of. The author mentions having a painting featuring figures like Albert Einstein, JFK, Marcus Aurelius, and others.
Wow, quite the lineup, drawn from history in different fields.
Essentially. The book suggests these figures offer different perspectives, embody ideals you admire, and provide wisdom that transcends your own limited experience.
So it's not just one mentor.
No, it's not necessarily about finding one single mentor, but cultivating a collection of diverse minds whose principles and actions you can learn from and emulate.
I like that.
And the mention of the custom bookshelf spelling Read.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It serves as another visual cue within the author's own environment, constantly emphasizing the importance of continuous learning and seeking wisdom beyond your own immediate knowledge base.
That's a powerful and creative way to visualize the pursuit of wisdom.
Yeah.
It brings us nicely into the next major section of the deep dive then.
Right.
Once you have that foundational vision and a clear understanding of yourself, how do you actually build the engine, the practical machinery, to make that vision a reality?
Okay, part 2. This section dives deep into building the right team, implementing strategy effectively, and creating robust systems.
Right, the how.
It begins by directly challenging what it calls the myth of the solopreneur. This is discussed primarily in the section covering Move 3.
Ah, the myth of the solopreneur. The pervasive idea that you can achieve massive success entirely on your own. The book seems pretty blunt about this.
It is very blunt. The core assertion is, a solo game, you'll always lose out to a team.
Always lose out. Strong words.
Yeah. Even individuals with immense talent or brilliant ideas need others to scale their efforts and achieve significant, lasting success.
Okay.
One of the key points made is that when you're just starting out, especially as a leader, people aren't necessarily joining your company because of its established reputation or vast resources.
Right, because you don't have those yet, maybe?
Exactly, they're joining you.
Okay.
Therefore, you need to think critically about the benefits program you offer as a leader.
That's a really interesting way to frame it. The benefits I offer as a person.
Kind of, yeah. It's not just about the salary and health benefits the company provides,
Right.
but what people gain intrinsically from being associated with you as a leader and being part of the culture you create.
So my track record matters.
Tremendously. It's described as your track record of helping people win, helping them grow, and enriching their lives in various ways by being connected to you and the mission you're pursuing.
Shifting from what can I take to what can I give.
Precisely. The book shifts the perspective from what can I take from this person to what can I give to this person and help them achieve.
And you have to keep doing that.
It argues that constantly improving this benefits program, demonstrating your own continued growth as a leader, and attracting other talented individuals to the team is essential for not just recruiting, but also re-recruiting your top people.
Re-recruiting, I like that.
Yeah. They need to see that staying associated with you and the company continues to increase in value for them personally and professionally.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you're the primary draw, how do you attract the right people? The ones who will truly contribute and align with the vision?
The book lists key questions that the best people implicitly or explicitly ask themselves when considering whether to join or stay with a leader.
Like what?
Things like, what makes your company distinct or your mission compelling? What separates your leadership style? Do you have a clear code of honor, and do you live by it consistently?
The fundamentals.
Yeah. What non-monetary and monetary benefits will they get from being part of this? And critically, are you, the leader, constantly growing and improving?
That constant growth piece again.
It's crucial. The material also stresses the importance of surrounding yourself with trusted advisors, people who can offer objective counsel. It uses the analogy of a consigliere.
Ah, the conciliar,
Yeah.
like the calm, strategic advisor figure often depicted in mob stories. The book does draw on those analogies for strategic principles quite a bit.
It does, yeah. But it focuses purely on the strategic and organizational lessons, carefully separating them from the illegal activities, obviously.
Right. Understood.
A consigliere, in this context, is a calm, insightful, and trustworthy advisor who isn't afraid to tell you the difficult truth.
Someone who pushes back.
Exactly. The book suggests looking for someone with similar values but different temperaments.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, if you, as the leader, are naturally hot-tempered or impulsive, find someone who is calm and measured. If you're an introvert, perhaps seek an extrovert who can provide a different energy or perspective.
Providing balance.
Yes, they
Right.
provide essential balance and hold you accountable to your own stated principles and goals.
That dynamic sounds absolutely crucial for leadership. And the book includes a cautionary tale referencing the Donnie Brasco story.
Yes, the Donnie Brasco story. It's used to emphasize the absolute necessity of thorough due diligence, even when people seem trustworthy on the surface.
So don't just trust your gut.
Well, the story where the mob was infiltrated due to vulnerabilities like greed and poor vetting is used to highlight that you cannot afford to make assumptions based on intuition or surface appearances alone.
Okay.
The lesson isn't necessarily that everyone is untrustworthy, but that you need a systematic approach to vetting people, looking beyond just their resume or what they tell you.
Rely on data.
Relying on data and observable patterns of behavior rather than just a gut feeling is presented as a more reliable approach, even for building your inner circle.
Using data for vetting. We saw earlier how important self-reflection and vision are, but the book consistently brings it back to measurable reality and objective information.
Which flows directly into the discussion of building systems, which we'll get to.
Okay.
But staying with the team for a moment, the book delves into the critical topics of compensation and culture, including the powerful incentive of granting equity.
Ah, yes, equity. Turning employees into owners. The Microsoft example cited is incredibly striking. 3 billionaires and 12,000 millionaires created through early equity grants.
That example powerfully illustrates the potential of equity, as the book argues.
So.
It creates a genuine ownership mentality among employees, aligning their financial success directly with the company's success.
Right, skin in the game.
Exactly. This simultaneously incentivizes high performance across the board, increases retention of top talent by giving them a vested interest, and serves as a powerful recruiting tool.
Makes sense. And what else do top performers want?
The book lists what outstanding performers prioritize beyond just base salary: proper compensation relative to their contribution, participation in the company's success, often through bonuses or equity,
Right.
the ability to have a real impact on the company's direction and results, meaningful recognition, especially peer recognition.
Peer recognition. Interesting.
Yeah, that's highlighted. Continuous opportunities for growth and learning, and crucially, clear expectation.
Clear expectation. That sounds so simple, but I imagine it's one of the hardest things to get right in practice.
Absolutely. The book emphasizes that expectations must be communicated relentlessly, clearly, early, and often.
Clearly, early and often. Got it.
It also tackles one of the most difficult aspects of leadership: firing people.
Ugh, yeah. Never easy.
No. The principle suggested is to fire gently.
Fire gently. How does the book suggest approaching that necessary but painful task?
A key point presented is that as a leader, you should take some responsibility for a bad hire not working out.
Take responsibility. How?
Well, perhaps you didn't vet them properly, or the role wasn't clearly defined, or the training was insufficient. Owning some part of that failure allows you to approach the conversation with more empathy and respect for the individual.
I see. Less blame, more learning.
Exactly. The goal is a clean, respectful break, not a scorched earth strategy, particularly given how quickly negative experiences can be shared and impact your company's reputation today.
True. Reputation matters.
Immensely. The book gives specific examples, like the author firing a high-producing salesperson, Amor Nuberence, for violating core principles.
So production isn't everything.
Nope. It demonstrates that production isn't everything. Values and culture matter more in the long run. The Morgan Stanley case study, where a top producer named Parson was fired primarily for cultural fit issues despite his performance, further reinforces this point.
So values and alignment with the culture are non-negotiable, even for high performers.
That's the message.
The book also introduces the concept of creating friction within the team. That sounds potentially negative.
Yeah, the term friction is used, but it's framed in a strategic, positive way.
Okay.
It's about creating productive tension. This can involve directly calling people out when they violate core values or principles, as the author describes doing with his sales managers, addressing issues head-on based on established standards.
So direct accountability.
Yes, but it also includes what's called positive friction,
Positive friction
like giving genuine praise and recognition for someone's contributions behind their back.
behind their back. Why?
Knowing that positive feedback will inevitably circulate through the team creates a form of positive peer pressure and reinforces desired behaviors and contributions.
Huh. That's a really clever tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Giving praise where the person doesn't immediately hear it adds an extra layer of authenticity and impact when it gets back to them organically.
Right. The Garrett Lewis example in the book illustrates how powerful that can be for building a strong, positive culture through peer reinforcement.
I like that.
Culture, as the book notes throughout these sections, isn't just about ping pong tables and perks.
Right, the superficial stuff.
It's built day to day through clear principles, clearly communicated expectations, and perhaps most importantly, how difficult situations like firing, conflict, or underperformance are handled.
How you handle the tough stuff defines the culture.
Precisely. The example of Joe Rogan constructively breaking down Brendan Schaub's fighting performance publicly.
Oh, I remember that. Intense.
Intense, yes. But it's used to illustrate how different communication styles and forms of pressure can shape team dynamics and individual development depending on the context and the people involved.
All right, so you've defined your vision, used your motivation, built the right team, established a clear culture with expectations and accountability. How do you then translate that into actual exponential growth?
Okay, that moves us firmly into the realm of implementing strategy and scaling, covered partly in Move 4.
Strategy and scaling.
The book contrasts what it calls linear business development's slow, incremental growth with the potential for massive leaps achieved through what it terms innovative campaigns.
Innovative campaigns,
Right.
like those historical examples. Bally Total Fitness offering $0 memberships.
Exactly. Or the launch of Amazon Prime changing e-commerce forever. Those are highlighted as classic innovative campaigns.
What others were mentioned?
Other examples mentioned include Continental Airlines implementing an on-time bonus directly for employees, Mitsubishi offering to cover gas payments with a car purchase, or Hyundai launching an unprecedented 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty.
Wow. Those weren't just slight adjustments, they were bold strategic moves.
Right. They required a deep synthesis of understanding customer unmet needs, analyzing competitor limitations, and leveraging internal strengths.
These are strategic plays that fundamentally altered the market or customer perception.
Oh.
They aren't simple marketing initiatives, they're game-changing strategies.
That's the point. Game changers.
And the book talks about applying positive pressure to employees here as well.
Yeah.
That still sounds like something you'd have to handle carefully.
It does require careful handling, definitely. The book uses the example of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
Okay, the Patriots dynasty.
Belichick was known for being incredibly demanding and applying constant pressure, even to a star quarterback. But it's framed as building resilience.
Resilience through pressure.
Yeah, a form of positive pressure that pushes individuals and the team to perform at higher levels and become battle-tested. The idea is that this creates a multiplier effect, where the collective resilience and ability to handle pressure amplifies the team's overall capability.
So it's not about destructive stress.
No, it's constructive challenge that prepares the team for high-stakes environments.
That framing makes sense. Pressure to perform, but with the goal of building strength and capability framed as growth opportunities.
Exactly.
And alongside implementing strategy, the book emphasizes the critical importance of momentum and speed.
Absolutely essential for capitalizing on innovative campaigns and market opportunities.
He is key.
Yeah. The feeling of experiencing rapid growth is described vividly as feeling like panic, a chaotic surge.
I can imagine that feeling.
But the book's advice is counterintuitive. Lean into that feeling, don't try to escape it.
Lean into the chaos.
That's the idea. The mantra offered is stark. If you overdose on anything, overdose on speed.
Wow. Overdose on speed,
Yeah.
speed of execution, efficiency in processes, maintaining momentum.
Yes. The example of the Toyota assembly line resolving problems in 59 seconds
59 seconds.
is used as a powerful illustration of how operational efficiency and compressed timeframes can become a key strategic advantage, leading to dominance.
It's about designing systems not just for quality, but for rapid detection and resolution of issues.
allowing for incredible speed with control. Which brings us perfectly to the next crucial element, using data strategically.
Ah, the Moneyball concept, move 11.
Yes, Moneyball. Like in baseball, using statistics and data analytics to find undervalued assets or gain a competitive edge.
How does that apply broadly to business strategy and life goals?
The book quotes Sherlock Holmes to drive this point home. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data.
Don't guess, measure.
Exactly. The core question that every entrepreneur and strategist should constantly be asking is, what can I track?
So it's about identifying the most important needles, the key metrics or indicators in your business or your progress towards a goal, and then rigorously measuring them.
Precisely. Tracking key indicators provides objective reality. It allows you to predict future trends, identify problems before they cripple you,
See things come in.
and avoid relying on potentially biased or emotional human reporting. The book uses the compelling example of Michael Burry.
The Big Short guy.
That's him, the hedge fund manager who foresaw and profited from the 2008 subprime mortgage crash.
How did he do it, according to the book?
He used publicly available data loan terms, default rates that everyone else had access to but weren't analyzing deeply enough. He had the foresight of a grandmaster because he applied rigorous data analysis.
That's an incredible story of using data to see a reality that was hidden in plain sight to others.
It really is. And the book explains how tracking data consistently reveals leaks and trends.
Leaks and trends.
Yeah. If your sales team is submitting more applications, a positive trend, but the time it takes to process those applications starts spiking, a negative leak, the data tells you exactly where a problem exists within your system.
Okay, it flags the bottleneck.
Right. The data itself doesn't solve the problem, but it pinpoints where to focus your investigation and efforts.
Like being a detective, but your primary clues are numbers on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. The author shares his own experience using sales data to eliminate seasonality in his business.
How'd that work?
By analyzing the data on when sales were happening and what factors correlated, he was able to design incentives and strategies. Like using baseball cards as prizes for agents who hit quotas early in the month, that smoothed out the sales cycle throughout the year.
Huh. Simple but effective.
It wasn't just collecting the data, but the insightful analysis of that data that led to the solution.
Trust the numbers.
The book strongly advocates for trusting the numbers over people sometimes because data removes emotion, personal agendas, and subjective interpretations.
That can be a difficult principle to internalize, though,
hmm
especially if the data contradicts what you're hearing from your team or challenges your own assumptions.
It requires discipline, definitely. The book gives the examples of Paul and Chris, two talented salespeople whose consistent underperformance became undeniable only through the numbers.
The numbers didn't lie.
Right. Relying on the data allowed for objective conversations. Why are you getting upset? I'm just showing you the numbers you generated and helped identify the root cause.
Finding the real issue.
This subjective analysis leads to the solve for X methodology.
Solve for X, like finding the unknown variable in an algebraic equation.
That's the analogy used. The book describes it as a systematic approach to problem solving.
How does it work?
You identify a complex problem, break it down into its component parts, use data to identify the unknown variable or constraint, X, that's causing the problem, and then design a solution to address that specific X.
Can you give an example?
Sure. In Paul's case, the data showed his closing ratio was fine. The problem, X, was a lack of activity. He wasn't making enough proposals.
Okay.
For Chris, the data revealed his X was a lack of qualified prospects in his pipeline.
Different root causes.
Exactly. So the solution, guided by this data-driven analysis, might be different for each person, perhaps coaching Paul on activity management or pairing Chris's strong closing talent with someone else who excels at prospecting. The Solve for X worksheet in the book is presented as a practical tool for this diagnostic process.
That makes perfect sense. It's about using data not just to observe, but to diagnose and target specific, measurable solutions. For you listening right now,
Yeah.
what are the critical needles or metrics that you should be tracking in your own work, your personal projects, or towards your goals? How could using data help you identify and solve for X, for the challenges you're currently facing?
Reflecting on that can shift your perspective entirely. It's powerful.
Yeah. This focus on data, systems, and managing the internal engine of your operation is foundational.
Absolutely.
But business and life also involve navigating the external environment, the competition, the negotiations, the unexpected threats. This is what the book refers to as the outer game.
The outer game. That sounds like where things get really intense. What does the book mean by that?
Well, part 3 of the material shifts focus to power dynamics, negotiation, and the necessity of staying constantly alert. It opens with a very strong assertion.
Which is?
Business is akin to war, or at least peace never exists for long in the market.
Whoa. Viewing business as war feels pretty aggressive. How do you reconcile that with building positive relationships and alliances, which the book also discusses?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
It seems it's less about literal aggression and more about adopting a mindset of strategic awareness and preparedness.
Okay, preparedness.
The book quotes Andy Grove, the former CEO of Intel, known for his mantra, "Only the paranoid survive."
Ah, strategic paranoia?
Right. This paranoia isn't about crippling fear, but about being constantly on the alert for threats, new competitors, market shifts, technological disruptions.
Staying vigilant.
Exactly. The material emphasizes the transient nature of success. It highlights the stark statistic that 89% of the original Fortune 500 companies are no longer on that list today.
Wow, 89%. That's huge.
It really underscores the continuous need for adaptation, reinvention, and maintaining a sense of urgency. Every day is urgent. Stay alert, stay alive. Paranoia, in this context, is a strategic posture of preparedness, not debilitating anxiety.
Okay, I get that framing. It's about recognizing that the landscape is always changing and stagnation is a death sentence.
Competitors aren't resting, they're strategizing against you.
Exactly. And the book discusses why even Goliaths, the massive, seemingly invincible competitors, can be beaten.
How can David beat Goliath in this context?
Well, they often become soft, lose touch with the market or their customers, lack the nimbleness of smaller players,
Complacency sets in.
and have too much existing infrastructure or revenue to risk bold, disruptive moves.
So being the smaller, faster underdog actually gives you inherent advantages.
Yes, and it presents specific strategies for taking on a Goliath.
Such as?
Build leverage before engaging, choose your fights wisely, focusing on areas where you have an advantage or they are weak, move incredibly quickly where they are slow,
Speed again.
strategically partner with the enemies of your enemy, study history to learn from past battles, let others wear them down where possible, and importantly, don't disclose your entire strategy or capabilities up front.
Keep some cards close to your chest.
Exactly. The author's personal experience of being sued by a massive insurance conglomerate, Aegon, and successfully fighting back is offered as a real-world example of applying these principles against a much larger opponent.
Those are practical battle tactics applicable in many competitive situations. But in the midst of achieving success and fighting Goliaths, how do you prevent your own success from becoming a vulnerability? The book strongly addresses managing your ego.
Ego management, crucial. It's presented as absolutely vital, especially as you gain success and recognition.
Why is it so dangerous?
The book warns explicitly that praise can be misleading and dangerous. It estimates that 90% of praise is lies.
90%.
Yeah. People often tell you what they think you want to hear. You desperately need a small, trusted circle of advisors that cancelier, again, who are committed to telling you the unvarnished truth, even when it's difficult or critical.
That resonates deeply. It's incredibly easy to fall for flattery when things are going well. Who are those people in your life right now who would genuinely challenge you and give you honest feedback, even when it's uncomfortable?
A truly critical question for sustained success. Definitely.
And the book highlights the strategic necessity of building alliances, sometimes even with rivals or former competitors.
Right. The example of Apple and Microsoft forming a critical partnership during a dark period for Apple.
When Microsoft invested.
Yes, where Microsoft invested and ensured Office compatibility with Macs. It's cited as a move essential for Apple's survival at the time.
Wow. Didn't realize it was that critical.
And the early alliance between Amazon and Toys R Us is another example from the book, illustrating how leveraging external strengths and mitigating weaknesses through partnerships can be crucial strategic moves for growth or survival.
Those alliances sound counterintuitive, partnering with someone you might otherwise compete with, but they were clearly game changers.
Absolutely. It underscores that strategic thinking sometimes requires unconventional pairings.
What about learning from others?
The book also suggests learning by observing from a distance or learning from witnesses.
Witnesses.
Yeah, people close to highly successful individuals who can offer insights into their habits, decision-making processes, and character from a different, often more objective perspective than the successful person themselves might provide.
That's a clever way to gain insights when direct mentorship isn't available or appropriate. Moving into specific skills within the outer game, the book has a provocative take on negotiation, suggesting studying mobsters for their skills.
Again, the book carefully frames this by focusing purely on the strategic principles of negotiation and operating under pressure.
Right, focus on the strategy, not the crime.
Exactly. It argues that successful mobsters had to be brilliant, quick-thinking negotiators operating in incredibly high-stakes environments. The key takeaway is not their criminal lifestyle, but their emphasis on preparation, understanding the other party, and maintaining composure under duress.
Preparation seems to be a consistent theme throughout the book.
It really is. The material outlines 7 essential steps to prepare for a meeting.
Applicable to any important interaction, right?
Exactly. Not just formal negotiations. These steps include deeply considering the other party's needs, desires, fears, and frustrations before the meeting.
Okay, empathy first.
Anticipating their likely arguments or questions, scripting out potential responses and key points, role-playing the scenario, ideally with an advisor.
Role-playing, interesting.
Asking trusted advisors for their perspective, consciously getting into the right frame of mind, confident but prepared, and ensuring you have a reputation for being trustworthy and delivering value.
That's comprehensive preparation.
It is. The story of Michael Frances, a former mob boss, is used powerfully here.
What happened?
His account of staying calm and processing emotion while his own father was selling him out in a critical meeting
His own father, wow.
demonstrates the extreme level of composure and preparation required in high-pressure negotiations.
That story is incredibly intense. To process that level of personal betrayal while still maintaining your composure and strategic thinking in a high-stakes confrontation, it truly highlights the power of preparation and emotional discipline under extreme pressure.
It really does. And the author shares his own negotiation experience with a powerful insurance carrier executive.
How'd that go?
He illustrates how applying these 7 steps, understanding the executive's potential fears, like looking bad to their board, and desires, like saving face, allowed him to leverage the situation effectively.
Understanding the other side's perspective.
He emphasizes Stephen Covey's principle here: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Putting yourself truly in the other party's shoes is fundamental.
And the book boils down a core rule for successful negotiation.
Yeah.
In order to get You have to give. You lead with value.
That's presented as a universal principle. You start by demonstrating the value you bring, how the other party will benefit, how they can win.
Give first.
The author's example of making a generous $1 million offer up front in a negotiation, before even making his core request, is used to show how leading with significant value can fundamentally change the dynamic and make your subsequent ask much more likely to be accepted.
It's definitely a long-term perspective, isn't it? Not just trying to squeeze the absolute maximum out of the other party in a single transaction.
Exactly. And it connects back to the sales wisdom of Zig Ziglar, mentioned in the book.
What was Ziglar's point?
Effective selling and negotiation is ultimately about conviction and a transference of feeling.
Conviction. Believing in it yourself.
Yes, you have to genuinely believe in the value of your product, service, or proposal and transfer that conviction to the other person. The story of the cookware salesman, whose sales dramatically improved only when he truly believed in the product enough to buy a set for his own wife, illustrates this perfectly.
That authentic belief seems foundational, regardless of the specific negotiation tactics you employ. And ultimately, the book suggests that successful negotiation boils down to having and understanding leverage.
Leverage. The core definition of power offered is simple: having options.
Power is having options. Explain that.
The example of Bobby is used to illustrate the opposite: a businessman who relied too heavily on one very large customer.
Okay, lack of options.
Right. That lack of diversification meant he had zero leverage when the customer started demanding unreasonable concessions.
So he was trapped.
Pretty much. The solution presented wasn't some complex negotiation technique in the moment, but addressing the strategic vulnerability created years earlier by not actively seeking and developing more customer options.
Power or leverage comes from not being dependent. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, whether that's customers, suppliers, or even just one potential job opportunity.
Right. Diversification creates options, and options create leverage.
Makes sense.
The book also talks about building power not just through options, but through relationships built over the long term.
The long game again.
Yeah. The strategy suggested is helping others first, consistently, without immediately asking for something in return, playing the long game of building social capital.
Any examples?
The author's story about visiting his friend Eli in prison, maintaining that relationship with no immediate expectation.
Wow, visiting someone in prison.
And how that connection years later led to a $30 million business opportunity is a powerful illustration of this principle.
That story is incredible and really underscores the immense value of genuine relationships and thinking in decades, not just minutes.
It really does.
And finally, the book encourages constantly staying battle-tested. What does that mean?
Cultivating your power not just through external options and relationships, but through continuous learning, adaptation, and rigorous self-improvement.
Always learning.
The example of Steve Kerr, a highly successful player, choosing to become an assistant coach under Greg Popovich, a master coach, after his playing career.
Right, learning from Popovich.
Is used to show the value of shadowing others and seeking insights from different perspectives, even when you are already successful in your own right.
Learning from others, regardless of your own achievements or status, that's a powerful commitment to growth.
It is. And the book closes this section, and indeed much of its practical advice, with a cautionary tale about Andrew Bynum.
Andrew Bynum, the basketball player who had immense physical talent.
Yes. The book uses him as a stark example of raw, natural talent being utterly wasted due to a lack of discipline, a disrespect for the process, and ultimately not staying battle-tested.
So much potential.
He had the physical gifts to be among the greats, but he lacked the mindset, the work ethic, and the commitment required for sustained long-term excellence that we see in figures like Kobe Bryant or Wayne Gretzky, who are mentioned earlier as examples of consistent, disciplined effort over decades.
That's a powerful and slightly heartbreaking contrast. Talent might open the door, but consistency, discipline, and a fundamental respect for the demanding process of improvement are what sustain success over time.
Exactly. Bynum represents the opposite of staying battle-tested.
It highlights that the game, whether it's business, sports, or pursuing any significant goal, never stops requiring effort and adaptation.
Never stops.
Wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From the absolute foundational importance of confronting who you want to be, to the practicalities of building the right team and culture, leveraging data and systems for efficiency and insight, and navigating the complex outer game through strategic awareness, negotiation, alliances, and staying constantly alert and prepared.
Yeah, we've unpacked the necessity of thinking multiple moves ahead, the power of clearly defining your ultimate vision, using challenges and pain as motivators,
Hmm.
the critical role of building a strong, principle-driven team culture, the objective truth revealed by data, the strategic advantage of paranoia or constant awareness,
Right.
the art and preparation required for effective negotiation, and the ways to build lasting power through options and valuable relationships.
It's a comprehensive framework that clearly extends far beyond just traditional business strategy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Deeply influencing personal growth, career development, and the pursuit of any significant goal you set for yourself.
It strongly encourages you, the listener, to take that fundamental question seriously. Who do you want to be?
That's the starting point. And once you have a clearer, more honest sense of that desired identity and destination, the challenge and the opportunity lie in deliberately mapping out your own specific next five moves to start moving decisively in that direction.
Because, as the material consistently reinforces, the game of business and life is ongoing. It can feel messy, unfair, or even ugly at times,
Yeah, it can.
filled with unexpected challenges, setbacks, and painful lessons. But perhaps the most provocative thought to leave you with, drawn directly from the core message, is this.
What's that?
It is ultimately up to you to control your own narrative. You are both the most important subject for you to study in this entire process and potentially the primary person holding you back from achieving your full potential.
That's powerful. You're the player in the board, in a way.
Right. Embracing that ongoing struggle, applying this strategic thinking to yourself, and fighting every single day for something you truly believe in. That's what makes the whole complex, challenging game worth playing.
A fitting and challenging thought to carry forward. The journey requires constant self-reflection and deliberate strategic action.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into mastering the art of strategy.